Alrighty, Randall. Thank you so much for joining me here today. It's good to have
Sure.
you on board. First time I've ever interviewed someone like this, so this is a bit new for me. But yeah, welcome.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
I guess my first question regarding Houseguest would be: so when you think back on the production of that film, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Oh, it was really fun to be. It was Pittsburgh. We were in Pittsburgh, so it was just a really fun time. Uh, the town was really welcoming, and I just loved working with Phil Hartman, and he was great, and Sinbad was really charming, fun guy. So yeah, I remember it really fondly.
Lovely. Yeah, that was going to be my next question. I was yeah. Do you have any like anecdotes about Sinbad? Because he comes off as such a nice guy, and it's nice to hear that he's like that in real life. So
Yeah, no, Sinbad is like he always had he was very energetic, so he would always only thing I can remember that was really fun was that he would improv sometimes quite a bit. So and it depends on which day, which scene, but I remember there trying to remember I can't remember the guy's name. I'm like blanking on his name, but one of the actors who was not an improv actor. It was a very serious actor, and it would just throw him every time. Sinbad would just change the lines and go in a different direction, and the other actors would have to keep up. And it's funny that Phil Hartman, who was known for being on SNL and being kind of a comedian and everything, he stuck very strictly to the line. So Sinbad would go off, and Phil Hartman, who you would imagine would go off, was sticking really close to the lines. So it was like this funny combination of the two of them.
yeah, I've seen quite a bit of
Yeah.
Phil Hartman stuff. I always think of that skit he did with Chris Farley, where he's got Chris Farley screaming in his face about being down by the river, and he's just you can tell he's staying so strict to the script. He really comes off as that character he portrays in. He always plays that same nice guy, and it feels really genuine. So yeah, that's
Yeah, he was a really good guy, and so sad what happened to him, but he was just a really good guy, very committed, very serious about his craft. He was just a really decent guy, you know.
yeah. No, it was a very sad loss what happened to him, and yeah,
Yeah,
he had a wonderful body of work. So it's a shame it was cut short. But yeah,
yeah, and he wasn't that old, he was like 49, when he died. So
yeah.
there was a lot more stuff to go that he would have done tons more things,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like I can't actually count how many things I've watched with him in it. And I would have loved to have seen more. So no, it's very much a shame.
Yeah,
Anyway.
yeah.
But yeah, so I've seen House Guest quite a few times. And yeah, I very much
Okay.
I very much get the vibe that Sinbad is improvised at quite a few moments in the script. I think one scene I always like to think back on is when he's at the party and he's telling everyone what the letters GFH stands for. Now, was that in the script or was he just freeballing that with
No, that was something that we wrote, but so like in comedy, for me, there's like certain moments that I really like to have in comedy, and that was one of the moments that was right on story. He stole this suit, and the suit was a funeral home's thing, and so he's caught, and he has to come up with what the GFH stands for. And no, but we wrote a lot of that out, and then there were some that he added to, like I think he added something like G strings for the huge. That was one of the ones that he added. But yeah, we scripted it out, and then gave him room to add to it. It's in a comedy, you really want to have moments where it's almost like you want to take what's best about your comedian and really put them in a place where they can have what they're so good at. And so I look for places like that in the movie to do that. And that was one of the places that we wrote it out, and then we let him do other takes where he'd improvise off of that.
Yeah, that's kind of how I got the vibe. And so I was reading that initially John Candy was considered for the role of Kevin. Hang on, is it Kevin or is it Derek? Kevin for the
Yeah.
role for the role of
No,
Kevin.
no, I don't. I never really. There was never really. I mean, the producers, Joe Roth and Roger Birnbaum, who were, you know, pretty big Hollywood producer guys, they made a number of movies. Well, Joe Roth was involved with was the head of Fox when they made all of those what do you call it, those John Hughes movies, and one of them, I think Uncle Buck was the one that had John Candy. Yeah. But so they had a relationship. So we never really approached John Candy, but that was one of the names that people talk about. It's just, you know, the funny thing about the script was it was originally written as kind of a dark movie.
Yeah.
About a guy who's hiding out. And Jody and I, my wife and I, basically the way it works with a lot of comedies is if you can sort of make it funnier or make it work better, then they greenlit the movie, basically. So Jody and I came on board and rewrote the movie. We didn't get credit on the movie as writers, but we rewrote the movie and turned it kind of from a darker story about this person that impersonates into a comedy, which it was.
Yeah, and
so that's how it came about.
Honestly, that's one of the things I love about the film is the premise on the surface seems really dark. You've got this character who's inherently selfish. He commits a lot of felonies and a lot of just morally wrong things, and yet the whole time there's this very sweet, uplifting tone to the film. It's almost a tonal jumble, but I find it something about it just blends so well.
Well, I mean, it's funny. Like I was pretty young then when I made that movie, and you know, basically the producer Joe Roth, who was a big studio guy, I remember right before he greenlit the movie, and he was saying, "Okay, we're going to make the movie now." We had done the draft of the script, and I said so, and I was really nervous, because I think I was like 30 or maybe I was 29 at the time.
Yep.
And I went into his office and I said, so, I had it all mapped out, like had all the, storyboards, and I was all ready to go. And he goes, whoa. What I want you to do is make sure you give me 4 or 5 really strong trailer moments and then do whatever you want. That's what he said to me. So I was like, okay. So then I pitched him the trailer moments. I was like, the moment where he does this, and then the moment where he does that. And he goes, okay, that's good. Go do what you want on the movie. And that's a totally different approach. But I think he realized that a comedy with these 2 actors, as long as it works at a comedic level, he's not going to get in the way of the storytelling. And the fact that I was young and it was going to obviously have a lot of energy, and that was what he was banking on. He was banking on the idea that I was this young upstart filmmaker guy going to make a funny movie, basically. Beautiful. So that's, it's like, it was so much simpler. It's like my life was simpler. That was a simpler time,
Yeah. And I definitely get what you mean about the trailer moments, because there's a lot of scenes in Houseguest that just kind of, pop out with a bit of a bam, as Sinbad would say. One impression I kind of get from watching it is I've noticed there's a lot of footage in the film that's kind of cut together with crossfades, and I'm wondering, was there like a lot more footage that ended up being unused, or did you kind of condense it down into the original vision in the final cut?
Not really, no. I mean, I haven't seen it in a while, but that's not my style now, but I think that I grew up watching lots of TV and lots of music videos and stuff. And the one thing I like more than anything, and maybe in this movie being one of them and the other ones I've done, is I like pace really fast. Yeah. And I like the idea that, there's different ways to approach directing, but I like in comedy, I think the most critical thing you can do is get the jokes, move on, get the next joke, move on, keep the pace fast. Especially in something that's kind of absurd to begin with, right? Yeah. So you want to keep it kind of fast. I think probably Eric Sears, who was the editor, maybe he did, like his way of helping me accomplish that. Maybe he added more of those kind of dissolves and things, but I'm not a dissolve-y kind of person. And also back then, it was like everything was shot on film, and now we shoot things digitally. And so, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was a different style of filmmaking or something that I was half in that realm and still trying to move. Like, but the pace is very fast in the movie. I don't know if you know that, but the pace is pretty quick. So that was intentional.
Yeah, well, that's actually one of the things I really like about the movie is that it knows it's got an absurd premise and it doesn't try to mess around trying to explain things away. It's just cut to the gag, cut to the gag, cut to the gag. Because if you're seeing a film like Houseguest, that's what you're looking for, really, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah, and it's what's I think it's sort of lost a little bit in a lot of current day movies is that, especially in comedies, is that people try to overcomplicate it or try to make it more sophisticated or something. And so, and by doing that, they sort of step away from what made it funny in the first place.
Yeah.
The funniest movies for me are like, I think, Bridesmaids and, Pitch Perfect and Dodgeball. Those movies are really moved at a clip. They're like, they don't dwell in scenes. They cut sometimes halfway into a scene, and I think that style of comedy is just not done that much. And it's unfortunate because that's what makes, I think, comedy really work, is when the jokes kind of pile up on themselves, and you have to go back and watch it again to try to get those funny moments. And people, it's just a different style thing now that people have gone to these like series, like Ted Lasso is like, sort of spread out the jokes.
Yeah.
It's charming, but it's not, the level of comedy is a little different. Like, they try to make it more like you have a certain number of jokes, and then you go to you sort of get into this character thing, and then you go to the next jokes. But I could see cutting, there's series on TV that would be better as a movie if you just kind of pushed all the moments together. But that's just my opinion. People think differently. So
Yeah, no, I would agree very much with that. And in my video on Houseguest, as I've got the script written right now, I talk a little bit about how comedy has sort of changed over time, and how when that film came out during the 1990s, it was an interesting period where kids, because it's a family friendly comedy, even with a little bit of a darker premise, but it's kind of, it's not got to that point where it's subversive and trying to break down all the characters and understand them all. It's more just sort of, we're just here to have a good time and laugh about it. And it gives me a real sense of nostalgia watching it, looking back on a time when, I guess, while I appreciate, comedy being a bit more nuanced nowadays, back then it was a bit simpler, a little bit more in your face, and not in an offensive way. What I really like about Houseguest is it, it doesn't go for a lot of the cheaper, sort of more edgy gags where it could be, teetering on aging not so well. I think this one just kind of sticks to its ridiculous premise, has fun with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, and it's also timing too. It's like when a movie comes out, like back then it was like the weekend, one weekend versus another weekend, it would be the number one movie or whatever, So we did well, but we would have done a lot better had we not been against whatever competition, Yeah. And that's sort of, unfortunately, well, the good thing now, that doesn't really exist because there's so many ways that movies get seen on streaming platforms and everything. But back then it was like theater, and if you didn't hit that weekend, that's then you were relegated to the second string, DVD pile or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it seems like that, that movie could have easily done been another, Dodgeball or whatever. It could have been that kind of, could have had that big rise, It just the luck of the draw. I mean, that's how it is. That's how it was back then. It was like if you were the number one or nothing, it's like one or the other.
Yeah. Yep. And so one of the things I actually find funniest about Houseguest is, with all due respect, the level of product placement McDonald's had in the movie. And I can't help but wonder, did they actually...
We got nothing from McDonald's. We got nothing from McDonald's.
Really?
That was me making fun of McDonald's because I grew up on McDonald's, and I always thought McDonald's was completely, like, I always thought it was like such a staple of this strange part of the world, where it was like, now in the United States and the rest of the world, now in the United States, it's in every single town, right? Yeah. Every single little airport, every single everywhere. But back then it was a little bit more like it was in a lot of places, but it was not like every single rest stop in a car or, you know, wherever. And so I thought it would be funny that here he is, he goes to this like upscale neighborhood outside of Pittsburgh, and there it is. And it's something that brings him, like, he wants to be, you know, because he's a vegetarian, or says he's a vegetarian. He
Yeah.
wants to have a burger so badly, you know. So that, I mean, it was just funny. I was just making fun of McDonald's. We didn't get anything from McDonald's. So
Right. No, that definitely
now it would be different. Nowadays it would have been all over it, but no.
Yeah, no, that takes me by surprise, because the amount the characters make direct references to Mickey D specifically, I was wondering if one of them might have had a hand in rewriting the script, honestly, but no, that's all part of it.
No, it's just me making fun of him. I mean, you know, I don't know. I just like, you know, I grew up on like, you know, Saturday morning TV and you know, sitcoms and stuff like that. And McDonald's was always like a thing that I would, you know, have, or whatever it was. So I always thought it was kind of a funny, you know, thing that this character just, you know, he wanted to have his McDonald's or whatever, and then couldn't have it because he was a vegetarian, and he had to like fake that it wasn't, you know, that he had a problem, and he was just, you know, trying to have his McDonald's, you know, when he gets caught, you know.
Yep.
But no, there was no. We built that little McDonald's in Sewickley, the little town outside of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I was reading that apparently that's in what is now a bagel store or something like that. How did Sewickley respond to it? Because I read that it ran as an operating McDonald's during that period.
No, the town is sort of a high-end little town, you know, like outside of Pittsburgh, and you know, we kind of came in there. We had we rented a house that we shot for the family, and everybody was pretty welcoming. I mean, they didn't know what to make of this movie that came there. You know, we went to Pittsburgh in particular because they had, at the time, they had a pretty robust tax credit program.
Yep.
And it was a fairly low budget movie as like studio movies go. So,
yep,
you know, they made it pretty accommodating for us to make the movie there. And yeah, we built that little McDonald's. No, it was like, you know, I pitched these ideas to the studio, and I was like, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do this, and I was ready for them to make me, you know, really drill down and say why this, and they were like, yeah, just go have fun, make these funny moments, and yeah. So there was really no, you know, like, people draw conclusions, but there really was no ulterior motive to, you know, to McDonald's. It was just that it was funny, and I thought it would be funny to do.
Well, that's fair enough. Yeah, and I've seen I've seen a bit of Sinbad's earlier stand-up stuff. He's got a few bits about McDonald's, actually. So like, was he quite enthusiastic about all the Mickey D's jokes then?
Well, he thought it was pretty fun, you know. Like, I think he definitely is a guy. He's from a large family. He definitely grew up on McDonald's and you know, French fries and Big Macs and all that stuff. So I don't think he had any issue with having the McDonald's thing. No, I remember he was he was on a diet. He was trying to lose weight a little bit while we were filming and everything. And I think we actually made the Big Macs that he ate. We made them with turkey burgers instead of hamburger meat,
Right.
because he was trying to not eat meat. Like, so yeah, so that was the only thing that was interesting. We made him his turkey burger version of the Big Mac. But no, he was totally down with it. I think it was just part of his culture of who he was and how he grew up on it, just like I had grown up on the McDonald's name and the burgers and the drinks and the milkshakes and all that stuff. So
no, fair enough. And
he's probably like me, probably on cholesterol medicine now and can't have any of that stuff. And you know, he's probably like sworn all that stuff off, because you know, as you get older, you can't eat that stuff. It doesn't work for you.
I've been keeping up to date with him. Actually, he's recovering from a stroke. Limbs of his that he's actually lost the ability to move are he's steadily starting to regain his
I didn't know
abilities.
that. I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah, he suffered a stroke a couple of years ago, and he was given a 30% chance of survival, but he's back to talking and he's steadily regaining more mobility. And his family set up a website for it, and he actually said he's not going to stop until he can actually walk across the stage again. So he's got a miraculous recovery going on right now.
He was such like his mind is so fast. Like if someone said an idea or something, he'd always have like 2 or 3 funny lines, like it would spark something. So it's really sad that I didn't know that I didn't know that he had a stroke. But he was really good to his family. Like his sister was working as his publicist, and he had a brother as like kind of a manager. He had a pretty big family, and a lot of them came when we were filming there in Pittsburgh. They were there. And he's just a really, really good guy. Like he was the kind of guy, like if there was anybody that saw him or recognized him, he would immediately stop and talk to him and do autographs and the whole thing. He was just really a gem, and big, like really tall and kind of gawky, and so he stands out. Like everybody knows exactly who he is.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm quite a fan of his work. So yeah. Now, just talking about Sewickley, I actually just came back from the States, and I was tempted to actually swing by Sewickley and visit it one day, just to like check out some of the sites you filmed it at and such. I was just in the area, and I thought, why not? Didn't end up doing it, unfortunately. But is there any like little anecdotes from Sewickley that were nice while you were in the town, or like any spots that were really beautiful?
Well, we tried to hire for extras and stuff. We tried to hire the local people. We did that, and in the high school, we hired a bunch of the local people that were there at the high school, kids and stuff, to be as part of the tapestry of the story. And it was just like a really pretty kind of very similar to a New England town. Really pretty houses, really pretty sort of like downtown street. And we shot in like different places throughout the city, and then and I remember I rented a little house and stayed there when we were filming. No, it was like, we did one day where we had to do, or several days where we had to do the fake snow. So we took over the area and did a whole fake snow thing. But it was really reminiscent of like a town like that you would see like in a John Hughes movie back in the day, like outside of Chicago. Had that similar feel. But Pittsburgh's a great city. It has an old history from being like a factory town. So it has this old vibe to it, and it has these great sort of bridges that go, into the city. And then outside the city are these various suburbs, and Sewickley's one of them. And then we hired a lot of actors locally. Carnegie Mellon is a pretty big university, and they have an acting program. And we hired like, I don't know if you recall, but there was the dentist in the town whose wife has like a space in her tooth.
Yeah.
Well, that guy was a professor from the acting school, and that woman, was a local actress. And throughout the movie, there was all kinds of great sort of local actors that we found. Because I think that if you go to a place like that and you can find some really good local actors, you should try, because you kind of want the feeling of the movie to sort of encapsulate the area. I think that lends something to it, The amazing thing one thing I do remember about the movie that was kind of amazing, you can't do today, is we filmed in the Pittsburgh airport, and we were like actually on the side of the airport where the planes are. So we were like, filming and walking through all the places that today you can never do because of security concerns. And we shot in the baggage area, and we shot in the drop off and all that stuff. And that was just really great. And it just gave such authenticity to it, which, normally you couldn't do. I don't think today you could do that. I think there's too much FAA security and stuff. You would never be able to do it.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was pre 9/11, you know? So
Of course, yeah. And no, I do agree with you. That's one of the other things I love about Houseguest is you do really get that authentic kind of sort of high end but family friendly town vibe. Like all the scenery is really nice, then the music's really lighthearted, and you kind of feel like
yeah,
you've kind of stepped away from, I guess, like the same way Kevin Franklin stepped away from his, rough end life. The audience is kind of taken away on a bit of a weekend getaway as well. And yeah, I think the film has a really nice feeling to it that way. So yeah.
yeah, there's that scene. There's a scene where they drive. You see them driving off into this like beautiful green area, and we had like a helicopter shot, like aerial shot. And
Yeah.
today, like back then, that was a big deal to have like the aerial thing. It was a whole special unit and everything. Nowadays, with a drone, you could do that much simpler. But back then, it was like quite a thing, and it was. I remember I had to pitch that to the studio and say, like, I think we should do this. It will really open the movie up and show where he's from and show the difference where he's from to where he's going, And so we did that. But it's a lighthearted, it's a lighthearted movie. We're trying to make it feel slightly fabulous, slightly like a fable, that you go into this journey with him, and what happens. So even the bad guys aren't really such bad guys,
Yeah. I love the goons. I love goon talk. It's an essential in just so many films, I think, and I really like the one in this one. Yep. But I will say so I was actually introduced to Houseguest by my partner because she grew up watching it with her family. They'd rent it on VHS from the local store like quite frequently. She showed it to me because she thought, this movie's it's a bit kind of low end, but it's also hilarious, and she was spot on. I'm obviously quite a fan of it. But her and we both share the same favorite moment in that film, and that's when Kevin's going Kevin, I keep getting them confused. Where Sinbad is going on about how he hasn't been the same since the accident, and he goes into that monologue about losing his friends in the Great White Shark Attack. Now, was that in the script, or was that all Sinbad?
That moment, there was a different moment, and the eyes on me, that was all Sinbad. There was a different scripted thing that he tells this like tall tale, and then it was like let me do a different one. I'm like, okay, go ahead. And then he does this other one, and then he did it once, and that was like, just go further, just go talking about like whatever the body parts are, or whatever it was. And he went further, and and that's the thing about Phil Hartman. Like Phil Hartman was like he's like he's kind of like a sponge. Like he can kind of react and give a little like snarky moment or a little laugh or a little thing. I guess because that was his training, and he had done improv and everything.
Yeah.
But he was always known on Saturday Night Live as the guy who could sort of react and bring the moment back to reality. And so that's kind of why that combination really works, because Sinbad, it kind of goes off in different directions.
Yeah.
But Phil keeps it. He's funny, but he keeps it straight. Like he's like a funny straight man.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the perfect way to put him. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like I think today, for example, Steve Martin and Marty Short, it's like that. Like Steve Martin kind of plays the funny straight man guy, and even though he can be really crazy, he plays on that TV show Murders in the Building or whatever. He plays it straight, and Marty Short is this like crazy, wacky, all over the map guy.
Yeah, it's the classic.
I think you need that combination sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And do you still get in touch with any of the cast or crew from Houseguest? Obviously, I know like your partner was involved in the creative process as she was on many.
Yeah. Well, there was a number of unfortunately, there's a number of people that passed away. Tony Longo, who was one of the thugs, he passed away. Kirk Bailey, who was a good friend of mine, who was the golf pro. He was like sort of the manager at the golf place. He passed away. Phil obviously passed away. I've over the years, I've come in contact with Jeffrey Jones, he was like I loved him from the John Hughes movies. He was in Ferris Bueller's Day Off and other movies, and he, but I've been off and on contact with him over the years. But no, what happens is, it was almost 30 years ago now. It's like 30 years ago, basically, almost. So your life moves on.
Of course.
Some of the crew people you keep in contact with, or you run into them again. But no, these movies, they're like, they live on TV and on streaming and everything, and they have this whole new life for people. Like people see it and they like talk to you about it like it happened yesterday because they just saw it.
Yeah.
But like I remember moments, but I don't remember all the moments because I've done like other things since. So it's like it's a funny thing. Movies can be very immediate for people because they're watching it for the first time. So I'm in the movie. I'm like the drunk guy who like hugs him at the wine tasting party.
Okay, that's
and Kevin West, who was another funny actor that I loved from years and years, that I'd known him for years. He plays the sort of snooty wine guy at the party. But there's moments. Kim Grice, I keep in contact with Kim Grice. She's the wife of Phil Hartman, but years go by and you lose touch a little bit. That's sort of what happens.
Yeah, of course. And now one other cast member I was curious about. So the girl that played Little Sarah, Talia Cider, I think that's. I hope I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was great.
She was just adorable in the film. She plays the part perfectly.
Yeah.
I've kind of noticed that when she's giving her performance, her eyes are kind of darting all over the place. So like as a child, was she just just looking for direction, just really trying to figure herself out?
She was really, really precocious. She was like a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the first scenes she shot was Sinbad was like improvising, like he did. And she like wanted me to tell Sinbad to try and stick to the script because she couldn't, because he was not remembering his lines. She was like a really precocious little kid. And I was like, don't worry, just do what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. And he's just a funny guy. He's going to say different things sometimes, But no, she was just really, that was part of her thing. She was cute, and she definitely had a full personality. Like that's who she was. That's her character in real life. She was like this little girl who told her parent in real life. She told her parents, "I want to be an actor." They weren't in the acting business at all. And she auditioned. We were like the first or second thing she had auditioned for, and I thought she was like this charming little girl that could be great in the movie. And it was like the first thing she was in. So I don't know what happened to her since. She's probably a doctor or something now.
Well,
she's,
I did. I actually tried to get into contact with her. So I saw on her IMDb she's only credited as being in Houseguest and on an episode of Jay Leno with Sinbad. But I saw her name for a there was a Talia Cedar PhD in California. I actually shot that Talia an email. It may be her, may not be. I'm not sure. But anyway, if that's her, then I think it looks like.
Yeah, I think her parents. I think she was really smart. I would imagine. I looked her up at one point. I thought maybe she had gone to become a doctor or something. But it wouldn't surprise me if she was, because she was just really precocious kid, and her parents weren't in the film business at all. I think they may have been doctors themselves. I'm not sure, but yeah. So that would make sense actually. That's probably her.
Beautiful. Well, it looks like I've got about 4 minutes before my free trial of Zoom runs out. So
okay.
My last question: do you have any other anecdotes from production that you might be happy to throw out there?
No. I mean, it was just it was a really fun time. I remember one thing I do remember that was really kind of fun was that so Sinbad was a full of life character at all times. And I became friends with him, and he would like between takes, he'd be like, "What about this? What about this? What about this? What about this?" And it's like exhausting because he was like a really energetic person, right?
Yeah.
And so on the weekends, I would have one day off because we were shooting on location, so it was 6-day weeks, right?
Yeah.
And it would be like 10 o'clock in the morning, waking up, knock at the door, and it'd be Sinbad, and it'd be like, hey, I got this other idea for this thing. And so for the next 6 hours, he would like follow me around as I did my laundry and whatever else, telling me different ideas that we want to try and explore. He was so invested in trying to make it really fun and funny and everything. And I thought that was really refreshing, because I had other experiences where it wasn't like that. And he was just such a effervescent kind of fun guy that I thought that was kind of cool. But that was something that happened like a number of weekends. Like I'd be like, okay, I can rest now. And then it was like, hi, I'm here.
That's hilarious. And that definitely comes across in the film because, yeah, like I said, one of my favorite things is Sinbad's enthusiasm for the material and his dedication to it. Like when he does his eye was on me monologue, the first time I watched that, I was just blown away by his dedication to that monologue. Like he just went all out that ridiculous speech, and it gets me every time.
Yeah. No, he's just really great. But I will look him up now that you told me about what happened to him, and I'll send him a note, see if I can find out, how he's doing.
Yeah, he might appreciate hearing from you. I think that'd be nice. So anyway, Randall, well, look, thank you so much for taking the time to, do this today. And
Sure.
my apologies for all the messing around getting it organized. I'm a bit new to it. So yeah, but
No worries.
Anyway, thank you. I can take this information away, and I think I'll come make a very good video out of it. So thank you. You have a lovely day ahead.
All right. Okay, cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.